Greetings, viewers. Today we'll be looking at a chapter from the Sagas of Middle-earth. Here we have a lovely Isengard berserker named Bolgodurr. As a berserker-class soldier, Bolgodurr specializes in greatsword combat, blowing up landmines, and running track and field. He is a member of an elite brigade called the Brains, a group of berserkers that take pride in smearing the fleshy remains of their foes on their loincloths and on their bodies. Bolgodurr is a proud and strong warrior. Many of the other soldiers in the Isengard army look up to him. However, despite the heaps of respect shown to him by his brothers in arms, many soldiers tend to keep their distance from him, as the putrid smell of shredded, decaying organs is extremely unsettling and nauseating. One of the few beings that can somewhat tolerate Bolgodurb's stench is Yurts. As a clone of the deceit's Lurtz, Yurts is an expert archer, swordsman, and tracker. Yurts became commander of the Isengard scouting division after Lurtz's death, but soon became the faction leader when the capital city was conquered by disgruntled walking trees. Out of respect for Bolgodurr, Yurts dyed his undergarments pink with pepper extract, which unfortunately led to Yurts developing a permanent scowl from the constant agony he was in. Yurts considered himself to be a kind, just, and noble leader, as he will always attempt to resolve conflicts as peacefully as possible. Despite this, Yurts is not afraid to use lethal force when absolutely necessary. Here we have Yurts and his forces extinguishing the last of the goblin tribes that take refuge in his territory. He did initially try to negotiate an alliance with the tribes, but alas, this never came to fruition. Nobody knows exactly how the war started between Yurts and the goblin tribes. Some say the conflict arose when the goblins responded aggressively when they saw a scowling Yurts approach them. Others say the goblins were not too thrilled when Bolgodurr offered entrails as a token of peace to them. Regardless of how all this started, Yurts was deeply saddened when he was forced to exterminate potential allies. Bolgodurr, on the other hand, was pleased with the destruction. For his service in the Goblin War, Bolgodurr became the right-hand man and advisor to Yurts. Since Bolgodurr does not speak in any distinguishable or comprehensible language, it is unclear whether or not he ever appreciated or even understood what this promotion meant. Regardless of his rank, Bolgodurr always seemed to like being around Yurts and the bloody conflicts that always seemed to follow that scowling face of his. Despite winning the war, Yurts and Bolgodurr lost more supplies and troops than they were comfortable with. In response to this deficit, the duo and the remaining forces set out to gather more resources and recruits for the survival of their kingdom. Isengard had a specialty for creating large industrial complexes fueled by the wood of chopped down trees. This wood-reliant industry was the exact reason why their capital fell in the first place. But in these desperate times, the limited Isengard force chose to fall back on the skill set that they were most accustomed to. Now, they needed to find a suitable forest to set up their shop. While Yurts and Bolgodurr did not find any other surviving Isengard armies, they did manage to find a serviceable forest to cut down, and their industries began to thrive. Everything was running smooth as can be, until the deforestation team unluckily discovered a cave troll den with a family of 4 irate trolls. At this point, Yurts began to formulate a plan in response to the potential threat that the trolls may possess. Being the reasonable and peaceful guy that he was, Yurts decided the best course of action was to be friendly with the trolls. He sent a small group of workers who could renovate the decrepit lair that the trolls dwelled in hopes that the trolls would appreciate his gesture of kindness. To Bolgodurr's credit, he took part in the development of the plan as best as he could by restraining his urges to eviscerate anybody near him. Ironically, Bolgodurr's earlier attempts of peace with the goblins by offering mangled flesh would have been the optimal solution in the situation for garnering the loyalty of the trolls. Surprisingly, Bolgodurr was somewhat aware of this morbid fact. Meanwhile, Yurts' temper was growing out of control. He had ran out of patience with dealing with the miscreants who would not behave reasonably towards him. First it was the goblin tribes, now it was the trolls. He was at wit's end and was ready for the imminent bloodshed. He commanded what was left of his army to brutally rip apart the disrespectful trolls. This here is the mangled, twisted, and broken memory Bolgodurr had from the battle. In his mind, everything happened so suddenly. Bolgodurr had been defeated for the first time in his life as he laid unconscious on the battlefield. His men mistakenly thought that he had been slain and proceeded to avenge him by viciously fighting tooth and nail to the bitter end. Luckily, Yurts did not give up on Bolgodurr's life, as he rushed in to see if his comrade had survived the ordeal. Yurts then discovered that his friend was barely alive. After several months of physical rehabilitation with Yurts, Bolgodurr was back on his feet. However, he was not the same person as he was once before. Due to the severe concussions he had received, his vision was very choppy, his coordination was off, and his desire to kill had vanished. Yurts took pity on the state Bolgodurr was in and decided to honorably discharge him from the army and told him to live his life as he saw fit.